Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, February the 27th. And welcome to our commentary. By the way, I just finished an interview with one of the Spanish networks regarding these remarks that President Trump just made about Cuba, the possibility of a friendly takeover. And I've got a couple of things I want to talk about that as part of our podcast today. But let me begin by pointing out that I have a post over at the American Thinker this morning, Friday, talking about the U.S. hockey team, but not the one that you have heard about, or nor the previous one. But this one goes back to 1960, and this is a story I didn't know. So it was so interesting to discover this. In 1960, the U.S. hockey team won the gold medal in the Olympics. Now, very few people have heard about this team. It was primarily a team of college guys from Minnesota and Indiana, and the coach was a fellow from West Point. And this team went into the Winter Olympics in 1960, which were held in California back then, and they won the gold medal. They beat, I think they beat Czechoslovakia to win the gold medal. Now, of course, this is the old Czechoslovakia when they were part of the Soviet Empire. And they had some pretty good teams back then, just like the USSR. So anyway, it's a fascinating story about a team that, as I write in my post, this is a team that time forgot. And I suggested in my post that President Trump should invite them to the White House. I don't know how many of these guys are still around. 1960, I'm assuming most of those guys were in their 20s. So most of them are now in their late 80s or maybe early 90s. But I think President Trump should invite him to the White House and just celebrate their gold medal. I don't know if any other president invited them to the White House before. I don't know. I didn't see that in the article that I wrote or in the article that I researched about this team. So the 1960 U.S. hockey team in the Olympics won the gold medal. And this is, of course, 20 years before the famous team that beat the USSR in Lake Placid. And, of course, would be, 66 years? Oh, my gosh. 66 years before this team beat Canada in Italy or wherever they were playing. So it's a great little story. And none of the guys who were in that team back in 1960 became famous or played in the pros or anything like that. And, most of them went back to either going to college or professions or whatever they were doing back then. But it's a fascinating story. So check out my post over at the American Thinker. I talk about this team that time forgot. We forgot about this team, and yet they won a gold medal in 1960. Let me say something about this hysteria on the part of some reporters. Some reporters were asking the U.S. hockey team about President Trump's remarks when he called in the locker room and he invited them to come to the White House, and they all accepted. I mean, this is a great team. These young Americans are a great team. They're pros. All of them play in the NHL. And they said, sure, we're going to go to the White House. Why not? And then Trump made a remark, a joke, I'm sure it was, that if he didn't invite the hockey team, that he was going to be impeached. 99% of the world reacted to that as a joke, as I did. But of course, you always have your very sensitive liberals who want to turn everything into whatever they want to turn it into. And they've been asking the members of the U.S. women's team, as well as the members of the U.S. men's team, whether this was a sign of disrespect. And most of them are saying, heck no, it was just a fun remark. And everybody's very proud of the fact that they won the gold medal, whether it was the ladies or whether it was the men. But again, I don't know what's happened to sports reporting. Sports reporting used to be about sports, which is why it's called sports. But here recently, not everybody, let me emphasize, but a small number, and most of them are women, who are reporting sports, for some reason have to politicize everything. And they have to bring a political connection to everything, like this story. And all they do is take all the fun away. There's nothing political about anything. It's all about hockey and a great celebration by a great team. And by the way, as I think I said before, they beat, I write this in my post, they beat a great Canadian team. That Canadian team was fabulous. It was made up of some of the best NHL players right now. I mean, I thought, and I think I said it before in a previous video, I thought Canada was going to win. I mean, if you look at the rosters on paper, you had to pick Canada. I mean, it was about as good a team as has ever been assembled, the Canadian team. So beating that team was quite an achievement for these guys. Now, again, they're all pros, but no question that the Canadian team was so well put together. So I'm sure that the guys on the American team understood what a victory this was to defeat that team from Canada, great team. And, you know, they got all caught up in the excitement and the patriotism and went to the White House and, of course, to the State of the Union. And my guess is that 99% of the American people reacted that the way I did, which is great job, wonderful to see patriots, wonderful to see patriotism. But you have a small number of people that have to somehow politicize everything. And unfortunately, many of them write in sports sections, and many of them are women who, for whatever reason, you know, want to make a big deal out of nothing. There's nothing here. It was a joke by President Trump, and even the ladies in the ladies' team basically put down all this nonsense. So, you know, if you're working in a sports section, just talk about sports. That's what this is all about. And just get the politics out of it, you know. I don't know what lady or what writer started this nonsense, but whoever it was, just have a little bit of fun and get over all the politics and enjoy the moment, which was a great moment for the U.S. and this hockey team of players. And I'm sure we'll always remember this, even though they're pros. And I'm sure they're going to make a lot of money in the NHL, and I'm sure they're going to win Stanley Cups and stuff like that, which is the ultimate in hockey, winning the Stanley Cup. But still, the fact that they were able to play this game and represent the United States, what a great honor that was. So I don't know. People need to have more fun, especially with all the politics and everything else around. Just have fun and stop trying to politicize sports. It just doesn't make sense. Well, let's talk a little bit about what President Trump is visiting Texas today, Friday. I don't know how long he's going to be here, but he is coming here, of course, on the weekend before the primary. And the primary right now is obviously generating a lot of interest, not just here in Texas, but outside of Texas. There are two huge votes on this primary day. The first one is on the Democrat side for the U.S. Senate. That one is taking practically all the energy, all the oxygen out of the conversation. And that's between Representative Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Talarico. That's for the U.S. Senate. Whoever wins that primary or wins the runoff is going to be the Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. On the Republican side, you have a three-way race between Senator Cornyn, the incumbent senator, Attorney General Paxton, the current Attorney General in Texas, and Representative Wesley Hunt, who is a U.S. House member, I think, around the Houston area. All three of these men are good. I voted for Senator Cornyn when I voted in the primary, but you know, you're entitled to your own point of view on that. But obviously, a lot of people are projecting what's going to happen. I think what will happen on the Republican side is that it'll go to a runoff between Senator Cornyn and the Attorney General Paxton. It's going to go to a runoff, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be contested, very contested in the runoff. On the Democrat side, though, that's interesting what's happening there. First of all, they're getting extremely high turnout for the early voting. And as I've been reading some of the news reports, a lot of the early voting turnout is coming from some of the black areas in Texas, or some of the districts with large black population, whether it's in Dallas or Houston or whatever. And I just saw a poll that had Jasmine Crockett over 50%, meaning she would win in the first round. Now, there are others that have it closer than that. There are others that have it at 47, 39, or 47, 45, that kind of thing. So we don't know if it's going to go to a runoff. I thought it was going to go to a runoff, but then I've now seen two polls here in the last few days indicating that Jasmine Crockett could actually win this thing outright. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. But all I can tell you is I guess it depends a little bit on what happens Tuesday and who goes out to vote on election day. Because as you probably know, here in Texas, we have early voting and then we have election day. We'll see what happens. But we're going to be chatting with our good friend George Rodriguez this weekend. And we're going to get into all of this as well as some of the other predictions here in Texas. But this one between Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico, this is the one that I think is going to be the really contested one on election day. And we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll talk to our friend George about what it all means and what are some of the early numbers. What are they saying? So check us out on that. We'll probably be doing that Sunday night like we always do with George. Well, another quick plug for my American Thinker post about the 1960 hockey team. What a great story that was. And as I write in my post, that's the team that time forgot. Nobody remembers that team. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but at least I didn't know anything about it. And now I know a little bit more about it because of the article I wrote and some of the research that I did. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.